There is a version of you that is buried, right now, underneath everything you were taught to tolerate. Underneath the people-pleasing, the overthinking, the old wounds you keep calling personality traits, the relationships you stayed in too long, the habits you defended because they felt familiar, the version of yourself you kept performing long after it stopped being true. And the reason you feel stuck, the reason progress feels slow, the reason some mornings feel heavier than they should, is not because you are lazy. It is not because you lack discipline. It is not because something is fundamentally wrong with you. It is because you are carrying dead weight. Weight that was placed on you by other people. Weight that you picked up in moments of pain and never put down. Weight that disguises itself as loyalty, as responsibility, as just the way things are. But it is killing your momentum, quietly, daily, without announcement. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Simple. But what he understood that most people never act on is that the same principle applies to what you carry. If it is not serving your growth, eliminate it. If it is not aligned with who you are becoming, release it, quietly, without explanation, without announcement, without asking anyone's permission. Today, we are going to walk through 10 things that are silently destroying your energy, your peace, and your momentum. Not surface-level things, not generic advice, the deep things, the ones nobody talks about, the ones that live in the hidden corners of how you think, how you relate, and how you move through the world. And here is the most important instruction I will give you before we begin. Tell no one, not because it needs to be secret, but because the moment you announce your elimination, the moment you perform your growth for an audience, you have already compromised it. The Stoics did their deepest work in silence, and so will you. Let's begin. The first thing you must quietly eliminate is something so subtle that most people never even identify it. It is the strange loyalty you feel to an old version of yourself. We all carry ghosts, old identities, old stories, old definitions of who we are that were written in moments of survival, not moments of truth. You were told you were too sensitive, and you believed it. You were told you weren't smart enough, and you built a life inside that limitation. You learned to be small in a room where being small kept you safe, and your nervous system, wired for repetition not reinvention, kept running that old program long after you left the room. Long after the threat was gone, Epictetus said, "Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens." The old version of you was doing the best it could with what it had. That deserves compassion. But compassion does not mean continuation. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to be unrecognizable to the people who knew you when you were smaller. You are allowed to outgrow the story that was written for you in your most vulnerable years. The subconscious is wired to repeat, which means, if you are not intentional, you will keep reconstructing the same version of yourself with different scenery, different job, same pattern, different relationship, same dynamic, different city, same story, until you make the decision, quietly, without announcement, to stop being loyal to a version of yourself that no longer serves who you are becoming. Let it go. Not dramatically. Just stop feeding it, stop defending it, stop explaining it, stop living inside it, and begin, one quiet decision at a time, building the version that was always waiting underneath. There is an exhausting habit that people in transition almost universally share, the compulsion to explain. You make a decision, a boundary, a change, a choice to move differently than you moved before, and immediately, before anyone has even questioned it, you begin explaining, justifying, defending, preempting the judgment you imagine is coming. But here is what the Stoics understood about explanation. Every time you explain yourself to someone who didn't ask, you are revealing that you are not yet convinced by your own decision. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Never esteem anything as of advantage that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect. Explaining yourself to people who don't deserve that access costs you your self-respect, every time. Because explanation, when it comes from insecurity, is not communication. It is a request for permission. And the Stoic path does not require anyone's permission. Strong people do not announce their boundaries. They simply have them. Wise people do not explain their choices. They simply live them. The person who is truly at peace with their decisions doesn't need a crowd to validate them. They don't need anyone to understand before they move forward. They move quietly and let the life they build be the only explanation that ever needed to exist. Begin eliminating the compulsive explanation. Make your decision. Live it. Let the results speak in a language that requires no translation. Not every relationship that is comfortable is good for you. Some of the most comfortable relationships in your life are the ones most quietly limiting you. Because comfort, real, deep, familiar comfort, can be a beautiful thing, or it can be a perfectly upholstered cage. The difference is whether the relationship calls you higher, or whether it requires you to stay the same in order for the dynamic to survive. Think about the relationships in your life where growth feels threatening, where your progress creates distance, where your evolving values are received as judgment, where becoming more somehow becomes a problem for someone who chose you when you were less. These relationships are not bad people. They are simply people whose connection to you was built on a version of you that you are in the process of and Marcus Aurelius was clear about this. The first rule is to keep an untroubled spirit. The second is to look things in the face and know them for what they are. Know them for what they are, not what you wish they were, not what they used to be, not what they might become, what they actually are. Right now, the elimination here is not necessarily dramatic. You don't have to cut people off. You don't have to make announcements. You simply, quietly, begin investing your energy in the direction of your growth rather than the maintenance of your stagnation. Some relationships will rise to meet you. Others will quietly fade as you move forward. Both are acceptable. What is not acceptable is staying small to keep a relationship comfortable that was never designed to hold who you are becoming. Most people don't live. They perform. Every decision filtered through the imagined reaction of an audience that is mostly indifferent. Every achievement measured not by its alignment with your values, but by how much approval it generates. Every version of yourself carefully calibrated to maximize acceptance and minimize judgment. And when you live this way, rejection doesn't just sting, it feels like death, because your identity has been outsourced. You have given other people the key to your sense of worth, and you have been waiting your whole life for them to hand it back. Epictetus said, "Seek not that the things which happen should happen as you wish, but wish the things which happen to be as they are, and you will have a tranquil flow of life." The approval addict cannot have a tranquil life, because tranquility requires an inner anchor, and the approval addict's anchor is always outside, always in someone else's hands, always vulnerable to being pulled away without warning. Here is the truth that people-pleasing hides from you. People-pleasing is self-abandonment. Every time you shape yourself to earn someone's approval, you are abandoning the actual self that existed before the performance began. You are choosing their comfort over your truth, their acceptance over your authenticity, their approval over your actual life. And over time, the self you abandon becomes harder to find. Because you have performed for so long, you have forgotten what the original performance was covering. Eliminate the addiction, not all at once. One decision at a time. Do one thing today that you would normally seek approval for and tell absolutely no one. Let it be yours. Let the doing of it be enough. Because the moment you discover you can act without approval and survive and even thrive, the addiction begins to lose its grip, and you begin to find something you may not have felt in a very long time. Yourself. There is an imbalance that has become epidemic in the modern world, and it is quietly destroying the creative, purposeful, meaningful life that is available to every person who chooses it. It is the imbalance between consumption and creation. Most people consume from the moment they wake to the moment they sleep. News, social media, other people's opinions, other people's highlight reels, other people's lives lived loudly, while yours waits quietly in the background of your own attention. And in all that consuming, in all that absorbing of what everyone else is making, your own creative life slowly suffocates, not dramatically, quietly. Marcus Aurelius didn't consume the opinions of others to determine how to live. He created, he wrote, he reflected. He produced from the inside out rather than absorbing from the outside in. He wrote, "Confine yourself to the present, Not the curated past of someone else's Instagram, not the performance of someone else's success. The present, your present. What are you making in the time you have? What are you building? What are you creating? What are you contributing to the world that only you, with your specific combination of experience, perspective, and purpose, could contribute? The elimination here is not about removing all consumption. It is about restoring the balance. For every hour of consuming, create something, write something, build something, solve something, make something. Because the life of deep meaning is not found in what you absorbed. It is found in what you made with what you were given. Here is a truth that overthinkers do not want to hear. Most of your thinking about a problem is not solving the problem. It is the problem wearing a disguise. Overthinking is anxiety dressed up as strategy. It feels productive. It feels responsible. It feels like you are doing the necessary work of being thorough. But what it is actually doing is keeping you in a state of mental activity that substitutes for action, while using the language of preparation to avoid the risk of beginning. Marcus Aurelius identified this trap with painful clarity. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The mind that overthinks has inverted this principle. It has given outside events, imagined events, events that haven't happened and may never happen, enormous power over the inner world. It rehearses failure before beginning. It constructs elaborate scenarios of what could go wrong before taking a single step toward what could go right. And it calls this wisdom. But it is not wisdom. It is fear with good vocabulary. The Stoic solution is not to stop thinking. It is to think with purpose. To ask not what could go wrong indefinitely, but to ask it once, answer it clearly, and then move, think, decide, act, in that order, not think. The moment you find yourself in the fourth or fifth loop of the same thought, that is not preparation. That is avoidance. Eliminate it by doing the one thing overthinking is designed to prevent. Begin, not perfectly, not completely, not with certainty. Just begin, because action, even imperfect action, generates information that no amount of thinking can produce. And information is the only thing that actually resolves the questions that overthinking endlessly circles. You become what you repeatedly experience. Not just what you repeatedly do, but what you repeatedly expose yourself to. The environments you inhabit, the conversations you normalize. Standards that surround you every day until they begin to feel like the natural ceiling rather than the artificial floor. Seneca wrote, "Associate with those who will make a better man of you. Welcome those who you yourself can improve. The process is mutual, for men learn while they teach. But the inverse is also true and far more dangerous. Associate with those who have settled for less, and your own standards will quietly descend to match the average of the room. Not because you chose to lower them, but because standard, like water, finds the level of its surroundings when left unguarded. Think about the environments you currently inhabit. Not just physical environments, but conversational ones. The group chats where complaint is currency. The friendships where mediocrity is made comfortable through mutual reinforcement. The workplaces where survival has replaced purpose. The social media feeds that normalize distraction, comparison, and the performance of living over the actual experience of it. These environments are not dramatically harmful. That is what makes them dangerous. They work slowly, lowering the temperature 1 degree at a time, until you wake up one day and realize that what you once found unacceptable now feels normal, and what you once dreamed of now feels unrealistic. The elimination here requires honesty. Audit your environments, all of them, and begin quietly, raising the standard of what you allow to surround you daily. Because the person you are becoming requires better air than the person you are leaving behind. This one requires the most honesty. Because this one is the most hidden. At some point in your life, you were hurt, maybe deeply, maybe repeatedly, maybe in ways that genuinely should not have happened. And in the process of surviving that hurt, you did something that made complete sense at the time. You built your identity around it. The wound became the story. The story became the personality. The personality became the lens through which you interpret every new experience. Every new person filtered through the template of the one who hurt you. Every new opportunity evaluated through the framework of the time you failed. Every act of vulnerability measured against the cost of the last time you were vulnerable, and it went wrong, Carl Jung said. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The wound running your life from the background, you call it fate. You call it just how I am. You call it being realistic. But it is the wound, unexamined, unprocessed, promoted to CEO of your entire decision-making apparatus. The elimination here is not about pretending the wound didn't happen. It is not about toxic positivity or forced forgiveness or performing healing before it is real. It is about something more specific and more powerful. It is about noticing, clearly and honestly, where the wound has been given a role it was never meant to fill, where it is making decisions that should be made by your values, where it is setting limits that should be set by your vision, where it is writing your future from the template of your past, and beginning, quietly, to separate the two. I was hurt, and I am not only that hurt. I carry this wound, and I am not reducible to it. That distinction, held daily, practiced consistently, begins to loosen the wound's grip on the steering wheel of your life, and slowly, the identity that was always there underneath the survival strategy begins to emerge. Your time is the most non-renewable resource you possess. More than money, more than energy, more than any material thing you will ever own. Time, once spent, is gone permanently. And yet, most people spend enormous portions of their most valuable time responding to urgency that was never theirs. Someone else's deadline that became your crisis. Someone else's discomfort that became your emergency. Someone else's inability to manage their own life that became a demand on your hours, your energy, your peace. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." Never beginning to live. Because you were too busy responding to everyone else's emergencies. Because you confused being available with being valuable. Because you had never learned to distinguish between what is truly urgent and what is simply loud. The elimination here requires a new filter. Before you respond to any demand on your time, pause and ask, is this my emergency, or did someone else's poor planning just become my problem? Is this aligned with my priorities, or am I abandoning mine to manage someone else's? If I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? That last question. Because every yes is a no to something else. Every hour spent in someone else's urgency is an hour not spent in your own purpose. The Stoics were not selfish, they were specific. They understood that a life of scattered availability serves no one deeply, but a life of focused intentionality, deeply committed to what actually matters, serves everyone in the ways that count. Eliminate the urgency that isn't yours. Reclaim the hours, and spend them on the life you keep saying you'll build when things slow down. Things will not slow down. You have to choose to slow them. We have arrived at the 10th thing you must quietly eliminate, and it is perhaps the most counterintuitive of everything we have covered today, because everything we have talked about has been about quiet elimination, silent growth, private transformation, doing the work without announcing it. And that is true, and that is right, and that is the Stoic way. But the 10th thing you must eliminate is the silence you have been keeping about your own worth, not to others, to yourself. The inner narrative that quietly eliminates your own potential before you ever begin. The voice that says, "Who are you to want this? What makes you think you deserve more than this? People like you don't get to have lives like that." That voice, that quiet, constant, internal elimination of your own possibility, that is the most dangerous thing on this entire list. Because the 10 things we discussed, the old identity, the compulsive explanation, the stagnant relationships, the approval addiction, the consumption imbalance, the overthinking, the lowering environments, the wound as identity, the borrowed urgency, all of them can be eliminated. With practice, with time, with the quiet daily commitment of a person who has decided to be free. But none of that work will hold. None of those eliminations will be sustainable if the foundation beneath them is still a narrative that says you are not worthy of the life that the elimination creates. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." The power over your mind includes the power over what your mind says about you. The Stoics did not speak of worthiness the way modern culture does. but they understood something equivalent: virtue. The commitment to becoming the best version of oneself, not because it earns external reward, but because it is the highest expression of what a human being can be. You are capable of virtue. You are capable of growth. You are capable of the life that is waiting on the other side of every single thing we discussed today. Not maybe. Not if things align. Not if people approve. Capable. Inherently. Already. Right now. The final elimination is the story that says otherwise. Eliminate it, quietly, without announcement. And begin, in the space it leaves, building the truth that was always there underneath it. 10 things. Hold them one final time. The loyalty to a version of yourself that no longer exists. The compulsion to explain decisions to people who didn't ask. The relationships that require your stagnation to survive. The addiction to approval that is actually self-abandonment. The imbalance of consuming more than you create. The overthinking that disguises itself as preparation. The environments that silently lower your standard. The wounds you have promoted to identity. The urgency that was never yours to carry. And the inner narrative that quietly eliminates your own possibility before you begin. Marcus Aurelius did not announce his growth to the court of Rome. He wrote about it in a private journal that was never meant to be read. He did the work in the silence of his own conscience. And from that silence, from that quiet, consistent, unannounced commitment to eliminating everything that was not aligned with who he was called to be, emerged one of the most extraordinary human lives ever lived. That same silence is available to you. That same commitment is available to you. That same freedom on the other side of everything you quietly eliminate is available to you. Start tonight. Not with all 10, with one. The one that resonated most. The one you felt somewhere deeper than your mind. Start there. Tell no one. Do the work. And watch, quietly, steadily, powerfully, what begins to emerge in the space you create. Thank you for being here. You are part of Stoic Journal, where every step inward leads you forward. Watch the next video on your screen. We will be right here, building the silence that holds real power.